Hello 8th class students. Now we are going to start the chapter coal and petroleum. It is very important chapter because there is a continuation of coal and petroleum. Like it will be again continuing in your chapter 8. So next chapter is also related, and even coal and petroleum is very important. These two chapters are related only. Now I'm going to present you few videos, a combination of clips which will help you analyze what exactly is the coal and petroleum. Then we'll be starting with the explanation part, and then again last minute, then again in the next week you'll get my explanation, which will be of the textbook activities. Then we'll be going for the workbook explanation of the answers and writing part. So watch these videos very carefully.
Where do we get coal from? Millions of years ago, the earth used to be covered by trees and plants. These plants died in swamps around river banks and got covered with soil and mud. As the years passed, the weight of the ground along with the earth's heat converted these dead plants into coal. To extract coal, it needs to be dug out. Coal is usually found in layers or seams underground. As plants die, they sink into swamps and get decomposed into peat. Ground heat and pressure remove hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen from it to leave mostly carbon. This is what we know as coal. Coal is classified by its carbon content. The greater the carbon content, the more heat it gives off when burnt. Use coal to draw. Break a piece of coal that you can use like a pen for drawing. Try burning different types of coal and see which one burns the quickest and which one the slowest.
Introduction. The blacksmith burns coal to get hot iron, which can be beaten to desired shape. A variety of fuels is used in daily life, such as coal, petrol, charcoal, LPG, etc. Do you know which chemical process is taking place during the burning of these fuels? It is combustion. In this lesson, you will learn about combustion of fuels. Objectives. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to explain combustion and its types, define ignition temperature, explain the necessary conditions for combustion, describe fire extinguishers, list types of combustion. Rohan is performing a simple activity. He is burning a magnesium wire on a flame. Notice carefully. Heat and light is also produced along with magnesium oxide. Now look at the burning of coal. This burns in air, producing carbon dioxide, heat and light. In both the example, the substances are reacting with the oxygen of the air to produce heat and light. This process is called combustion. There are two types of substances. Some substances catch fire and burns, while the other group does not catch fire. As you can see, the boy is bringing a lighted matchstick close to the paper and glass. Paper catches fire, and so it is called combustible substance. The glass does not burn, and such substances which cannot burn in air or oxygen are incombustible substances. Let us discuss the conditions necessary for burning. Light a candle and cover it with glass tumbler. You will see that candle stops burning after a while. This implies that candle burns freely in the presence of air. Therefore, air is necessary for combustion. We just saw that a paper burns when lighted with a matchstick. Now bring the matchstick close to the piece of wood. The piece of wood does not catch fire. One lighted matchstick is not able to burn the piece of wood, but a piece of paper burnt quickly. This is because a piece of wood has not reached its ignition temperature. Ignition temperature is the lowest temperature at which the substance catches fire. Your mother would have told to keep burning matchstick or a lighter away from LPG gas stove in the kitchen. This is because LPG catches fire very easily. Similarly, you must have seen no smoking sign board at the petrol pumps. It is because petrol also catches fire very easily, and therefore it is advisable not to smoke at the petrol pumps. Substances like LPG and petrol are inflammable because they have low ignition temperature, due to which they readily catch fire. Now we will see how the fire can be put off. Fire needs oxygen, heat, and fuel to exist. However, it can be extinguished by removing any one of them. You must have seen fireman throwing water on the fire and the fire gets extinguished. Water brings the temperature of the combustible material below its ignition temperature and cuts off the supply of air. But water is not a good extinguisher for electrical or oil fires. For electrical and oil fires, it is best to use carbon dioxide as an extinguisher. Carbon dioxide, being heavier than oxygen, covers the fire like a blanket, due to which contact between the fuel and oxygen gets cut off. Let us now look at types of combustion. You can see a lady igniting LPG in a kitchen to make food. LPG burns quickly, producing a lot of heat. This type of combustion is called rapid combustion. When white phosphorus is left in the open for some time, it catches fire. This type of combustion is called spontaneous combustion. Other example of spontaneous combustion is the forest fire and fires in coal mines. You must have used fireworks during festival days. What happens when the cracker burns? The burning of a cracker produces a large amount of heat, light, and sound. This type of combustion is called explosion. Summary. Let us summarize what we have learned. The substances which burn in air are called combustible. Oxygen in air is essential for combustion. Ignition temperature is the lowest temperature at which a combustible substance catches fire. There are various types of combustions, such as rapid combustion, spontaneous combustion, explosion, etc.
Welcome to the lesson on combustion. At the end of the lesson, we will be able to define combustion, differentiate between combustible and non-combustible substances, describe the various types of combustion, explain the different methods to control fire. What is he doing, Dad?
He is simply trying to get some heat, son. He is burning small pieces of wood to get some heat in the presence of oxygen, a chemical process in which a substance reacts with oxygen to give off heat is called combustion. The substance that undergoes combustion is said to be combustible. It is also called a fuel.
Dad, I studied in my school that food is a fuel for our body. Is it right?
Right, Anme. Food is broken down by reaction with oxygen and heat is produced in our body. And heat is produced in our body. This fuel may be solid, liquid or gas.
Are all materials combustible?
No, Anme. Some materials like iron nails and stone pieces do not burn, and hence they cannot produce heat. They are known as non-combustible materials.
Dad, can combustion take place in all the conditions?
No, certain conditions are required for combustion to take place. To understand this, let us do an activity. To do this activity, we will take a candle, a matchbox, a glass chimney, a glass cover, and 3 wooden blocks. We will first light a candle and put a glass chimney over a lighted candle. Chimney should rest on the wooden block such that air can enter the chimney easily. What do you observe?
I can see that the candle is burning very nicely.
Now, remove the blocks and place the chimney over the table. Put the glass plate over the chimney. What do you observe?
This time, candle flickered, gave smoke and stopped burning.
What did you understand from this activity?
I understood that air is necessary for combustion, Dad.
Right, Anme. That is why we cover a person with a blanket if he is on fire. Blanket stops passage of oxygen and thus the fire is stopped. Anme, you must have seen that it is easy to fire a matchstick.
Yes, Dad. And with burning matchstick, it is easy to burn a piece of paper.
Yes, that's right. But you see, wood doesn't catch fire easily with a matchstick. We use paper or kerosene oil to start fire on wood.
Yes, Dad. I have observed this. But why does this happen?
Actually, Anme, different substances catch fire at different temperatures. The temperature at which a substance catches fire is called its ignition temperature.
But Dad, how does matchstick start burning on rubbing it on the side of the matchbox?
The head of safety match contains antimony trisulfide and potassium chlorate, and rubbing surface of matchbox has powdered glass and red phosphorus. When the matchstick is rubbed against rubbing surface, red phosphorus in the rubbing surface reacts with potassium chlorate in the matchstick head to produce heat and to ignite antimony trisulfide, and this starts the combustion.
Oh, now I understood. I will tell my friends about it.
Anme, you have seen your mom cooking food on a gas burner. Can you think how the food is cooked?
I'm not sure, Dad.
The food is cooked due to conduction of heat from the gas burner to the utensil. Due to conduction, the heat gets transferred to the utensil and thus the food lying in the utensil is cooked. Let us do an activity to understand this. Make 2 paper cups and pour 50 milliliters of water in one of the cups. Heat both the cups separately with a candle. What do you observe now?
The empty paper cup catches fire, but the water in other paper cup has become hot.
The water is boiling in the paper cup because of the transfer of heat from the paper to the water. This transfer of heat happens due to conduction.
But Dad, why does the cup with water does not burn unlike the empty paper cup?
This is because in presence of water, the ignition temperature of paper is not reached. Hence, it does not burn. But there are substances like LPG, petrol, kerosene and alcohol which have very low ignition temperature and can easily catch fire with a flame. These are called inflammable substances. There are 3 essential requirements for producing a fire: fuel, air and heat. This is called a fire triangle. To extinguish fire, we need to cut off one of the 3 things.
How can we do that, Dad?
Water is the most common material used to extinguish fire if the fire is wood fire, paper fire or fabric fire. Water cools the combustible material so that the temperature is brought below the ignition temperature. Anmay, you should understand that if electrical equipment is on fire, water may conduct electricity and harm those trying to control the fire. Water is also not suitable for fires involving oil and petrol.
Then what shall we do, Dad?
For fires involving electrical equipment and inflammable materials like petrol, carbon dioxide is the best extinguisher. Carbon dioxide, being heavier than oxygen, covers the fire like a blanket. Thus, oxygen is cut off and fire is controlled.
And how do we get carbon dioxide?
Carbon dioxide can be stored at high pressure as a liquid in cylinders. When released from the cylinders, it expands in volume and extinguishes fire.
What if the fire is too big to extinguish by ourselves?
You should call the firefighting station in your locality. Usually, their telephone number is 101.
Dad, are combustions of different types?
Yes, they are of different types. Anmay, the burner in a kitchen uses cooking gas. The cooking gas is mainly butane. The gas burns rapidly and produces heat and light. Such combustion is called rapid combustion. Burning a matchstick is another example of rapid combustion. Phosphorus also burns in air at room temperature. The type of combustion in which material suddenly bursts into flames without the application of any apparent cause is called spontaneous combustion. Spontaneous combustion of coal dust has resulted in many disastrous fires in coal mines. When a cracker is ignited, a sudden reaction takes place with the evolution of heat, light and sound. A large amount of gas is formed in this process. Such a reaction is called explosion.
friends, this video on coal and petroleum part 1 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Topics to be covered in this lesson are Introduction, Natural Resources, Exhaustible Natural Resources, Inexhaustible Natural Resources, Coal, Petroleum, Natural Gas, Judicious Use of Natural Resources. So what are natural resources? The name says natural resources, the resources which exist in nature. So these are those substances that exist in nature and they are useful to mankind. So for these substances, we cannot create them artificially. So even if we want to create them, we can't, and they tend to exist, they tend to form in nature by themselves, and they are extremely useful to mankind in many different ways. Most of them act as wonderful sources of energy. So some of the examples of natural resources are soil, and we all know how important soil is. The growth and development of plants, they are all directly dependent on soil. Soil is rich in minerals. So there is an entire ecosystem which exists within the soil. There are so many different types of living organisms living inside the soil. So soil is one such natural resource. Air. We live because we are able to breathe in. And what do we breathe? We breathe air. So air which is present around us is something which is extremely important for the survival of all types of living organisms. And do you think that we can create air? No, air is something which exists naturally. Water is another such natural resource. Forests, wildlife. So these are all examples of natural resources. Some other examples of natural resources: coal, petroleum. So these are also natural resources because we cannot create coal, we cannot create petroleum. So in this lesson, our agenda is to talk in more detail about these two natural resources, that is coal and petroleum. So we will see that how they are beneficial to us, how do they help us. Now just to tell you in brief, so you would have often seen that coal is being used to, when you burn coal, you get a lot of fire, you get a lot of heat, and that heat energy is utilized for many different purposes. For example, it is used for cooking purpose. Coal is also used for generation of electricity. So the heat energy of the coal is transformed into electric energy. So that's how the energy is utilized. Petroleum, there are so many products which are obtained from petroleum like petrol, diesel, kerosene, and all of them are useful to mankind. So these types of resources are called natural resources. Now the question is, why do we talk about managing resources? You would have often seen people saying that we should take good care of the natural resources, we should try to not waste them, we should try to preserve them. So why do we talk about resource management? Because the resources are limited. Now, even if not all resources, but those resources which take a long time to be formed, we can say that they are limited. Now, if you take examples of resources like air, water, or coal, petroleum, so if you compare these resources, so when you look at the availability of air, you feel that there is so much of air around us. So why do we really need to manage air? Because already plenty of it is available. Now, if you talk about coal or petroleum, now do you know how coal is formed, how petroleum is formed? Now, it is actually a very time-consuming process. It takes millions of years for coal or petroleum to form. So now, when you are able to prepare something over a million of years, so you should not let that exhaust within a couple of years. Now, managing the resources is also important so that we can ensure equal distribution of resources to all. Now, if you see the resources, as we said, a lot of resources are limited. So now when you have something which is in limited stock, so we need to ensure that everybody gets equal share of it. Otherwise, what will happen? All of it will get consumed by a certain group of people and some other group of people will remain deprived of it. So that ways we need to ensure that these resources, especially the ones which are limited, which cannot be created over and again, so those resources should be distributed equally. Protect the environment, because Making use of these resources also harm the environment in a certain way. For example, usage of coal, petroleum, so these kind of things, when they are burned, a lot of pollution is also caused to the environment. So we also need to take care that the resources are being used in such a way so that the environment remain protected. So these are some of the reasons because of which we talk about managing the natural resource. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again. Hello friends, this video on coal and petroleum part 2 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Now, if you talk about the types of natural resources, broadly there are two types. One is renewable resources or inexhaustible. The other one is non-renewable or exhaustible. Now, what is the meaning of renew? Renew means something which can be used over and again. So that is called renewable. So if you are able to use something over and again, that is renewable. That means it is not getting over. It is continuously being, created. So one such example would be air. So you see, air is always present around us. So air is something which can be used over and again. We breathe in air, we also breathe out air. We also see air being present around us all the time. So it is inexhaustible. Exhaust means something which gets finished. Exhausted means getting tired, getting finished. So inexhaustible, that something which doesn't get exhausted. So renewable resources are inexhaustible resources, and one such example is air. Non-renewable resources, they are just the opposite. These resources, once we have used them, they are gone, they are finished. So they cannot be renewed over and again. One example is coal. So once you burn coal and you utilize the heat energy in some way, so you just lost that amount of coal. So you cannot use it again. So these type of resources are also called exhaustible because they get finished. And moreover, the next stock of coal to get formed, it is going to take millions of years. So it takes millions of years for formation of coal. But to use that coal, you just need a couple of minutes or a couple of hours. So that ways, if you see, the stock will get finished or the stock will get over in a period of time. So these are called exhaustible resources. Now in this lesson, we are going to talk only about the exhaustible resources. So this is where we are going to focus in this lesson. So however, let's define both of them. So first was inexhaustible. That means it can be used over and again, and that is why they are called renewable resource or unlimited stock. So the stock is always there. It never gets over. So that is why they are called renewable. Example is sunlight, wind, air. So these are all renewable resources. So you always have them around you. So they get produced all the time. On the other hand, exhaustible resources, they cannot be used over and again, and they also have a limited stock. So the chances of them getting over is like more because they take a lot of time to get formed, but in a small amount of time they get utilized. So examples of these kind of non-renewable resources are coal, petroleum, minerals. As I said, coal, I think all of you are aware of. Petroleum, anything like petrol, diesel, kerosene, they all are components of petroleum. You talk about minerals. Minerals are substances which are formed naturally inside the earth. So examples of minerals could be the precious stones and gemstones like ruby, diamond, emerald. So they are all examples of minerals. So one very important application of mineral is that metals are extracted from all these minerals. Metals like gold, silver, copper, zinc. So they all come from minerals. So these minerals, they are exhaustible because their formation needs a long period of time. So we should utilize them very judiciously so that before the next lot of exhaustible resources are formed, we should be able to live with the existing stock. So why do we have so much of concern with the exhaustible resources? Because see, with the inexhaustible resources, the supply or the stock is never ending. So it is like unlimited stock. So we are not much bothered about it. Even if we are wasting that, so we say that okay, the stock is unlimited, so we are not going to suffer. However, that approach is also not right, but that is how it is. But when it comes to the exhaustible resources, it is like you have a limited stock. It is just like this jar of chocolates. So you see, the jar is like not even full of chocolate. So this much stock is what you have. So now let us suppose there are 2 students in the class to eat these chocolates. So obviously, even though it is half a jar of chocolates, but still for 2 students, they are like quite enough. Now let us suppose they start eating 1 or 2 chocolates. So the amount starts decreasing. Now, if the number of students suddenly increases, now instead of 2, let us say now you have some 10 students feeding on the same jar which is half full of chocolates. So what will happen? The number of chocolates inside the jar will reduce suddenly, and it will reduce a lot because now more people are there to consume the chocolates. So what's going to happen now? So now if you look at the jar, the number of chocolates which are left is like very, very less. That's because all of them have got consumed, and you cannot refill the jar because it is exhaustible resource. So you do not have a supply of chocolates all the time. So your next supply will come maybe after 10 years or so. So you just can't fill the box again. Now what will happen if 2 more students come now? So now if the number of students coming in still now is increasing, what's going to happen? There are no more chocolates left over for them to eat. So in this case, what happened was you had a limited stock, you had a limited number of chocolates. Those who came initially, they had all of them, and those who came a little late, there was nothing left for them. So what was wrong in this case? So firstly, you had a limited stock. So that was one thing, but you can't do anything about that because if the production of that particular resource takes so much of time and you cannot artificially produce it, so you absolutely do not have any control on the amount. You just know that, okay, this much is the stock. So now with that stock, the thing which went wrong in this scenario was that initially those who came, they ate it all. So there was no equal distribution of the chocolates. There was unequal or unfair distribution of the chocolates, and that is why those who came in earlier, they had enough chocolates, and those who came late, there was nothing left for them. And this is the main concern with exhaustible resources. So when you talk about exhaustible resources like coal or petroleum, now they have been formed as a result of millions of years. Now when they are there, we often see that the present generation people, they try to make excessive use or unnecessary use of these kind of resources like coal and petroleum, which is absolutely wrong because the future generations, we are not leaving these resources for the future generation. So when the future generation come in, it might be possible that there is no coal, there is no petroleum left. And by now we all know how important coal and petroleum is, how crucial role they play in our day-to-day life. So that is why it is very important that we use the exhaustible resources very, very judiciously. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more educational videos with a better experience. Please do not forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for latest updates. Thank you once again.